November 26th took a lot of people by surprise, but prior to that, there are times when the U.S. Embassy would issue security alert to its citizens in the country. To my knowledge, that was not done. So it brings me to what level of support does the U.S. Embassy render to Sierra Leone in terms of intelligence in security?
So November 26th took all of us by surprise. The United States had no forewarning that this was coming. Your government had no forewarning that this was coming. This was something that was done under the radar screen. We have to be honest that we had a significant intelligence gap, I think, on all sides about what was being planned by the individuals who carried out this attempted coup d'etat. So I think in terms of what support we provide to Sierra Leone, when we have information that is relevant to the security or stability of the country, we share that with the government. We have a very open relationship with them. We've had a lot of collaborative discussions since November 26th about how we can strengthen that collaboration and how we can do more to try to build that information sharing on both sides, because there are times when your government knows things that we don't necessarily know. So I think that's critically important. I also think the discussions that the president had with his counterparts in the economic community of West African states on this issue are vitally important. Oftentimes, what is going on in the region is better known to states in the region than those of us from the outside. And the more that ECOWAS governments can share information among themselves about security threats that are emerging, the more likely we are to prevent something like this from happening in Sierra Leone or any other country in the future.
So this has happened now, and we see, prior to that, obviously, there was the dialogue between the main opposition, APC, and the government. That ended. We saw action plans being taken, but then now there's the November 26th situation factored into, the actions that were already being taken as part of the recommendations from the dialogue. And now what we see is some members of the opposition have been called to the investigation, have been arrested, former president put under house arrest. With all what's going on in Sierra Leone, in the political landscape presently, what's the opinion of the U.S. Embassy?
So I think it's critical that we keep the investigation separate from the dialogue and the agreement, because the two things are very different trajectories. There is a judicial process that is going on to find out who was responsible for November 26th. Whoever was involved in that needs to be held accountable under Sierra Leonean law. They broke the law. There is no question about that. Anyone who supported them, financed them, broke the law. And those people need to be held accountable. I do not believe that what happened on November 26th reflects the position of the opposition here in Sierra Leone. I don't believe that any legitimate political actor in Sierra Leone would back what happened on November 26th. If individuals did so, they did so in their individual capacity. They should be held accountable in their individual capacity. This is not an excuse for walking away from the dialogue and the agreement, because the vast majority of the opposition, the vast majority of those on the government side as well, are committed to seeing national unity move forward, are committed to a democratic political process, and abhor what happened on November 26th the same way that all of us do. So I think we need to be very clear that when we talk about the investigation for November 26th, we're talking about investigating and holding accountable individuals for their individual actions. Sierra Leone does not believe in collective punishment, nor does the Universal Declaration on Human Rights. So we do not punish a political party or any organization for the individual actions of its members.
But don't you think this is going to affect the peace dialogue, being that higher authorities of that of the main opposition are under investigation?
I don't believe that it should. Okay. My view is very strongly that the investigation should proceed. If people are guilty, they should be charged. If people are found to be not guilty or not involved, then I have no doubt that they will no longer be investigated. But I believe very firmly that the two have to proceed in tandem. that it is critical that the two proceed in tandem.
So what if our situation, what if probably the former president, because as we all know, he's under investigation, what if he's been prosecuted and taken to court? Don't you think that's going to affect the stability of the country, the peace stability of the country?
Well, I think it depends upon on what basis any individual is arrested and prosecuted. I believe that if there is a case to answer for, that any individual, irrespective of what one's previous political life was, should be brought to account, should be held to account for their actions. If there is no case, then I have no doubt the investigation will be dropped and the individual who's under investigation will be released. Obviously, I don't have access to what evidence the government has. None of us do. I think we all need to wait to pronounce judgment until charges are either brought or not brought, and then see what the evidence is behind those charges. And if there is substantive evidence, if it meets the due process standards, then I think we all need to allow justice to run its course. And I have no doubt that the government's going to proceed in that way, that they're going to ensure, as they've said many times, that due process and rule of law is upheld, and that anyone who is investigated and charged, it will be on the basis of solid evidence and in line with the requirements of Sierra Leone's constitution and law.
Okay.